We are 2 weeks away from the start of Major 2 qualifiers for the Call of Duty League Modern Warfare 2 season. And the most beloved team in the league, OpTic Texas, still doesn't have a complete roster. What's going on, YouTube? I'm PescaroDB, and today we are talking about the potential downfall of the GreenWall. OpTic Texas most recently took a very disappointing defeat at Major 1 in Raleigh, North Carolina. They exited on day 2 of the event after a loss to the Florida Mutineers in a 5-map series, and you could just tell that something was off with the team. The fans were confused. It was a very disappointing loss for OpTic, especially for where their standard's at, and especially with Scump being in his final season. And on top of that, you had one of the most hyped up teams after winning Major 1 in the Vanguard season, not starting quite the same way in Modern Warfare 2. Things got off to a rocky start for them, at least during the qualifiers. There was the whole SAE situation with Minnesota Rocker. I'm sure you've heard about it. But if you haven't, essentially there was a kill streak, the SAE, that was GA'd because it was causing issues with the game. One of the players on Minnesota Rocker accidentally pulled it out, and it caused an issue, and Minnesota wanted to replay map 3 of Control because OpTic had won it after that happened. OpTic was not willing to replay the map, and instead the league just decided, okay, this match is over, Minnesota's automatically getting the win. So no strangers to drama. OpTic started the year out in very dramatic fashion and took a loss in that sense, and then they rebounded. They got wins against the Florida Mutineers and against the London Royal Ravens, but then they took a loss to the Los Angeles Thieves, a team that they've struggled with over the past 2 years or so. But they still placed well into Major 1. They started things off hot, actually, with a 5-map round 11 S&D win over the Florida Mutineers. Italy made some interesting comments after that situation. He was being interviewed by Guy Blaze, the in-person host announcer at the event, and he asked, what did it take for OpTic to win the match? And in his words, I'm quoting, not 100%, but basically, Illy said, we just big dicked them, and that's how we were able to win, and we're going to give the OpTic fans something special this weekend. That was when things started to go downhill for them. They took a very, not embarrassing, because Toronto Ultra is a very good team, but they got dominated, and they lost 3-0 to the Toronto Ultra, which knocked them into the loser bracket. And from there, they faced off again against the Florida Mutineers, and this time around, they won map 1, and then in the S&D, they were up, I think, 4-0 at one point, and Illy was shooting bodies. Everyone was loving it, but at the same time, that's when everything went downhill, because OpTic ended up losing that S&D, losing that series, and then they were done for Major 1. They currently are sitting at like 10th, or just, I know they're below top 8, based off of their placing and their amount of pro points or CDL points at the moment. And just before the turn of the new year, which, by the way, Happy New Year to those who are returning to the channel as well as those who are new to the channel. Be sure to subscribe for more CDL content and updates. But right before the turn of the new year, OpTic's probably most talented player, rawest talent, you could argue maybe Shotzi, but Dashy put out a series of tweets, and he removed anything mentioning OpTic from his Twitter profile, which obviously set the CDL world into rostermania mode. There was also moves happening across different teams, LAG bringing up people from their academy roster, but the main focus for everyone, of course, is on OpTic. Still, to this day, we don't know what's going on with them. It appears that Dashy is in fact not going to be playing with them, whether it's he's going to a different team, whether he's stepping into just doing content but staying under OpTic, or if they're just moving him to the bench temporarily, I guess, to sort of maybe teach him a lesson. There have been rumors throughout his career that he's not the best teammate when it comes to practice and being prompt and on time for scrims and all that. I obviously don't know any of that. I don't know Dashy in person. I don't know OpTic Texas in person. So that's not me saying those are true. That's just the rumors that constantly go around surrounding Dashy as a Call of Duty player. One of the biggest things that holds him back from, taking that next step to being elite. So it looks like Dashy is not playing on the roster. And it's funny because before the season started, OpTic technically dropped Dashy and Illy, and we're going to pick up new teammates to go with Scump and Shotzi. But then they ended up signing them both back, even though they announced that they cut them. So they ran it back with the roster, and now after one major and one set of qualifiers, they look to be making another roster swap. A lot of rumors were coming out about who it was going to be. One of the biggest ones at first was Arcides. Another one was Pred. And I think the most recent one that players and fans have kind of speculated is that Hook would actually be coming back to the Envy OpTic banner, if you will. Hook played for Team Envy / Dallas Empire in the first season of the Call of Duty League, where he won COD Champs with Shotzi, Illy, Crimsix, and Clayster. And then moving into Black Ops Cold War, the second year of the CDL, they dropped Clayster because the rosters moved from 5 to 4. And at least through the first couple of majors, Hook was still on the team. But then he went through a bunch of roster changes, got sent over to LA Thieves. That didn't work out. Now he's on LAG currently, but now that LAG is bringing up their academy team, it's looking like he is either going to be benched or traded or something like that. Many have been speculating that Hook will be the one replacing Dashy, bringing back the trio that's known as XEO. I personally want to offer my opinion on the situation. I don't think it's a good idea for OpTic to replace Dashy. One of the biggest issues for OpTic ever since the days of the Dynasty squad with Scump, Formal, Karma, Crimsix, who teamed together from the Advanced Warfare season after COD Champs all the way through the initial parts of the World War II season. That was like a 2 or 3 year span of games where they were sticking together no matter what. And although they only won one COD Champs, being Infinite Warfare, they were dominating all the big events for the most part. I mean, it's easily one of the most successful teams in Call of Duty, competitive Call of Duty history. But of course, that ended up fizzling out, and Scump has re-teamed with Crimsix and Karma. He teamed with them in Black Ops 4, and then he teamed with Formal in MW19 and Cold War. Dashy is the only player that Scump has more than 1 year of experience playing with on the current OpTic roster. And I just don't think that throwing in another player who he has zero experience playing with in his final season as a professional player is a smart idea. You look at other teams that have either chosen to switch rosters or to stick it out through tough times. I mean, you could just go back to the Call of Duty Vanguard season. The Los Angeles Thieves, in the off-season, they brought Octane back to the 100 Thieves organization from Seattle. And then they went and got Envoy, who was dropped by OpTic Chicago at the time, but OpTic Texas. And they brought those two in to team up with Kenny and Draza. And through the first 3 events of the year, they weren't really finding much success. People were arguing that they should make a roster change. Instead, the team decided they were just going to change up some roles, move Kenny back to using a sub, like he was very well known for during his trip to the finals in World War II with Team Caliber, and that paid off for them. They ended up winning Stage 4, and they ended up winning COD Champs. That was the only team to win back-to-back events in the Call of Duty Vanguard season, and Kenny won back-to-back event MVPs. So I personally think that in Call of Duty esports, I mean esports in general, but especially Call of Duty, far too often do teams get faced with adversity, such as just not performing well at a major, or maybe some internal drama behind the scenes. And instead of trying to reconcile it and you know make changes that'll help everyone improve and be better to improve the team overall, egos get involved or whatever, and they just move on and they think, oh, we'll just bring in this other talented player and that'll solve all our issues. The problem for OpTic is I don't think there's another player out there as talented as Dashy that they could bring in. I know people were saying maybe Beans, who's on the Boston Academy roster, and then like I said earlier, Arcides, Hook. People were even trying to say, oh, maybe they'll go get Clayster from Vegas or they'll bring Crimsix out of retirement. Those are just obviously guesses slash hopes and dreams of OpTic Dynasty fans. I just don't think that moving on from Dashy is the right move right now. I think they should stick it out, see where if he mentally is checked and wants to move on from playing Call of Duty, that's a different story. But if it's just a function of there's been some minor internal drama, they want him to practice more, whatever it may be, I think they need to work it out. They need to realize that if they're firing on all cylinders, they're one of, if not the most talented rosters in the league, and it showed at Major 1 of Vanguard. Overall, I think that the best option for them is to go the LA Thieves route and stick it out, make some internal changes in terms of roles or whatever it may be, and make things work. I mean, if you were going to split the roster up, you would have done it in the off season when you announced that you were dropping 2 of your players, and you didn't. So just because you had a bad start to the first major of the year, I don't see why that's reason enough to break the roster up and make changes. Not to mention that the 4 of them didn't even play a full season together last year because Illy was dealing with a thumb injury after Major 1. And I think with Scump in his final year, it's best that they stick it out. If things don't work out, obviously, I just don't think another player is going to make a difference in that sense, and it's just unfortunate that it doesn't end up working out. OpTic is still going to be a team after Scump. Then you can make roster changes. Obviously, with him retiring, you're going to need to fill that spot, and then you can move on from there. But I just don't think changing up the roster is the right move for OpTic at this time. I don't think it makes them any better. Let me know what you think. If there's a certain player you think they should replace Dashy with, if you think they should stay together, anything along those lines. I'd love to hear your opinion on this topic. I also am currently writing for Breaking Point. You can see my article about this. I'll put the link in the description below. But I did an article about this subject as well. And be sure to drop a like, comment who you think is going to be replacing Dashy, or whether he will just stay on the roster like I think they should do. Be sure to subscribe for more Call of Duty League content and just Call of Duty content in general. I appreciate you staying all the way through and watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.